and welcome along to House of Rugby Ireland here on Joe and together with Guinness. I'm Eimear Considine and I'm here with Ian Madigan. Now, as you all may have seen, Fergus was one of the 12 Barbarians players who breached the team's bio bubble last week, ultimately leading to the game's cancellation. He greatly regrets what happened and has made a full apology. Fergus is going to take some time now to focus on his career. We do have a great show lined up today as we discuss some Irish lads who had great debuts, talk about the challenge that awaits Ireland in Paris, that final day of the Guinness Six Nations, and some cracking Guinness Pro 14 action over the past few days. It's all coming up on today's show.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
So during the week, we asked you to show us your setup for the game. The winner was going to be entered into the Guinness House of Rugby Hall of Fame. So Ian, what was your setup like for the game on Saturday?
Obviously up in Belfast at the moment, we're in a bit of a strict lockdown. So I just watched the game here with Anna. So it was nothing overly exciting, but the game certainly made up for that. What about you, Ian? Where did you watch it?
I was again stuck in my 5K radius, so I was here in Dublin watching the game. Nice Saturday, it was a full day of rugby on the couch. It was probably the laziest day I've had in a long time, but a great weekend of rugby, I suppose, from Friday night all the way up until last night. I think I have made a dent in the couch from sitting down, which is something that I'm completely not used to.
Great weekend for Irish rugby, comprehensive win against Italy and a clean sweep for the Irish provinces. So no, all around really positive and great win for the women as well. It was obviously disappointing not to see you running out. I'm sure it was a stressful enough week year end.
Yeah, it was. I'm not going to lie, it was a stressful week. But look, as everyone keeps saying, it's the times we're living in at the moment. And I suppose an inconclusive test and then a negative test, it's at the end of the day, safety is the most important thing for both our team and the traveling teams coming over. And, it's hard to take and it's hard because you have a lot of training done and your name to start. But look, the girls did amazing and a win is a win. And we get another chance to play at home next weekend, which, is super exciting. And there's so much rugby to still talk about and to play, which, there's no point getting bogged down. It was one game and it was disappointing, but look, these are the things that have to happen. So, what do you make of the Irish performance? I think, we were expecting it to be a little bit rusty and there was a few errors on that, but, they got into it for a finish and got exactly what they wanted out of the game in a 50-17 win.
Yeah, certainly. Look, it was a very comprehensive performance, and I think it was great to see some of the first cappers doing particularly well. The likes of Will Connors, Hugo Keenan. They brought through the form that they've been showing for Leinster over the last few weeks. I know personally from playing against Will in the regular season game at the end of last season, he's a really, really tough guy to play against. Probably the best chop tackler I've ever seen. We went down his channel a few times at the start of that game, and very quickly we realised we've got to start looking elsewhere because the way he tackles, he just gets the guys on the ground so quickly. And I know some teams use the tactic of sometimes it's wise to run at the opposition's best jackler so they can't jackal, but because of his tackle style, he gets them on the ground so quickly. It then presents opportunities for the guys around him, like we saw with Andrew Porter and CJ benefiting from some of his tackles, getting over the ball and getting turnovers and getting penalties. But no, look, it was a very comprehensive performance from him, and it'll be interesting to see if he gets another run this weekend. And I suppose for you, looking at Hugo Keenan at the back, how did you think he went?
Yeah, like he has been on form this whole time and I suppose deservingly so got that start on the wing. And I suppose we weren't sure whether he was going to get the start at fullback or the wing. And, because he has played both and similar at Stockdale, we weren't sure where he was going to start or where his best position is. And I suppose Keenan, what an ideal start for him. Like you actually couldn't think of a better first cap. Like what a dream. I know it was probably disappointing not to have, the crowd and the fans and your family and friends there, but he almost got 3 tries. A hat trick on your first cap is just a dream come true. He did so well. It wasn't just the tries that he scored, his defense, his line speed, his aerial abilities, his footwork. He provides so much, and I'm glad that people like him and people that are in form are finally getting the chance to show just how good they are. And he made up a really strong back three. With Jacob Stockdale and Conway. I thought Conway was quiet enough, but Stockdale we were discussing last week whether he would be 15 or would be on the wing and what he can contribute to that 15 position. And, I think we saw at the weekend that he's not just that, catch and kick or get the ball and run into space kind of a person. He has so much to his game that I think the 15 position allows him to show off to the world that, yes, he has pace, yes, he has strength, but, his evasion, that he cut through that Italian defence to set up Hugo for that try that was disallowed. But like he's not just a one trick pony, and he's in either, in attack, he can come in at first receiver. He provides that two-sided attack with his left boot and Johnny on the open side with the right boot or whatever it is. It's a nightmare for teams. And I suppose Ireland's attack, they played so well. There was obviously lots of different elements to that, but we didn't just see the Murray Sexton kicking of the box kicks and exiting. There was different dimensions to the game, and Stockdale was really prevalent and really important in that. And I suppose you've played with him in Ulster, and you've seen him both on the wing and at 15, and the influence that he has on you as a squad as well.
Like I thought we saw another layer to Ireland's how they can exit. Like obviously over the last few years, we've seen Murray box kicking very effectively and wingers chasing it, but that does limit you. It's just a box kick. There's no running threat when you're doing that. Whereas with Jacob now and his left foot, obviously Johnny's got a good kicking game. Andrew Conway down the right is a very competent kicking game. You can hammer it down the channel, and that opens you up with opportunities to decide to run the ball. If you're shut off, then you can drop it on your foot, kick it long. We saw that with Jacob. He kicks the ball 60, 70 meters nearly every time. Or if you do decide to run, you could make easy, 10, 15, 20 yards in the edge. And then Murray can step up, and it's a much easier box kick for him. And you're kind of playing on top of teams with much more momentum. I think against the top sides like, England, France, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, you need to have more layers to your game. I don't think it's enough to just have that kind of box kicking threat that Ireland have shown over the years. So it was great to see, a bit more variation there and them getting good pay out of it.
Yeah, and even going back to the box kick, and I suppose the lack of box kicks this weekend, a lot of people were happy to see that, and different elements to the game. But I suppose Conor Murray did play one of his better games, and even Jamison Gibson Park when he came on, like we saw, like how risky and how like brave of him. Like I know if I was there, my first cap inside my 22, my first touch on the ball, there's no way in hell I would have chipped over the top. But two good performances from two very good nines, and Gibson Park coming on. Like, do you think himself and Johnny had that planned in advance? Because it was his first touch. Like, it's pretty risky.
Yeah, look, it was a real sign of a classy player. I'm sure the call came in from Johnny, like judging by how he was setting the blocks and how quickly he burst through and did really well to regather the ball. I think for James, he's just come on, he's in the zone, he's got a call for a particular play, and he's just thinking execute it. He's not thinking negatively of I'm in my 22, I don't want to do a risky play. I'm sure they've practiced it a few times during the week, and the video analysts had identified the space kind of behind the Italian defence, but in front of their backfield cover. And it's a really tough kick that, and he's judged it to perfection. So no, I think Ireland are well stacked at scrum half at the moment. There's probably four really good options there with good experience. And even Caelan Blade at the weekend, I thought he was fantastic for Connacht against Edinburgh. He showed real creativity with some clever kicks that led to tries. So no, it's definitely an area that Ireland are really stacked in, and it's great for competition.
And that's it. It's really great that Ireland are stacked for competition, and it's not just in the 9 position. It's across the board, and we're seeing the influence that the bench had, especially at the weekend. But there's players there that any other day would be on the bench or starting for Ireland that are getting to miss out. I suppose it just shows the competition, and the bench did happen to show that influence when they came on in the second half. They just finished out the game and just were clinical in the end, and it's great to see.
Yeah, like I think in previous years when a starting 13 of Gary Ringrose's quality gets injured, it would have been a crisis. When I remember when Drico got injured and towards hamstring in the Six Nations, Ireland will come to a standstill because the guys who were backing him up, were a big step down in the quality that he provided. But if you look at the Irish setup now, you've Henshaw, Bundy, McCluskey, all raring to go, ready to step in, and they probably offer something else as well. So
you're going to say McCluskey, but I'm going to say Chris Farrell, sticking from my Munster side of things. So
yeah.
it's the Ulster Munster getting on there.
Yeah. No, too right.
There seems to be a bit of Munster bias around here. I think producer Pat got a bit of abuse from Johnny about Peter O'Mahony and his amazing offload and how he always goes back to the Munster men. So I'm with producer Pat here with that, sticking to the Munster guy. But yeah, look, being able to bring on someone like Henshaw, like you're not actually weakening the squad in any way, you know. And I suppose the partnership that he has had with Bundy, you know, it's not as if it's, yes, Henshaw and Ringrose have lots of experience playing together, but similarly, you know, Bundy and Ringrose do, or Henshaw do as well. And even bringing on Peter O'Mahony, the experience he brings in, you know, in relation to managing the line out. And it's not just, you know, he mightn't do anything spectacular. He will get the jackals. He will be there for ruck cleanouts. He will control that line out defensively in an attack. And I suppose you need people like him on your bench to come on.
Yeah, certainly. Like, you know, if Pete was on the bench again this weekend, I think having that kind of calming influence of someone who's got as much experience as him could be huge. You know, if it does come down to Ireland needing a third and fourth try and securing the win against France, you'll need experienced guys there to, you know, steady the ship and be the calm head to call the right call and be brave enough. You know, that's ultimately what it's probably going to come down to this weekend. It's going to be a serious challenge going over to France, probably needing 5 points. But I think we saw, you know, in the France Welsh game that they do provide the opposition with plenty of opportunities. And, you know, Wales got a soft 10-point lead. And I think if Ireland got that, it would be much harder for France to pull them back. But yeah, how do you think they'll go at the weekend?
Like going over, like France is always going to be hard. You know, we haven't got a very good scoring record against France in the last, you know, what is it, the last 8 tries and 8 visits. Like it's not a lot. And we need that bonus point win. I suppose we're in a good position in that we're going over or we're playing the game against France and we're the last game knowing that we're 23 points ahead of England, I suppose. So we can see the results and see what we need to get going into that game. But as a player, I suppose you've been there in 2014, 2015, and you know France are no easy feat and they're no easy task. In 2015, you came off the bench in Murrayfield and it was a very different experience for you then.
Yeah, certainly. Like I know for Ireland, they'd rather know what they have to get at the weekend, whether it's 5 points or whether it's just a win, and um, you know, the points difference is looked after itself. But yeah, I remember back in 2015 coming off the bench, and we were playing before England and France, and we knew that obviously we had to win the game and get a bonus point, but also make it as difficult as possible for England to build up a score against France for the points difference. So I don't remember a whole lot from the game, but I do remember I had a kick at the end, penalty kick to, you know, get 3 more points in the last kick of the game to make it more difficult for England. And I missed a relatively easy kick. So it was a very nervy couple of hours afterwards because the England-France game kicked off just as we finished. And France came out of the blocks really quickly, like scored 2 quick tries. And I was thinking, grand, I'm in the clear here. Went in, got showered up, having a crack with a few of the lads, and then came back out. And England had started this like great comeback. So I was then like stressed out again. I had the calculator out, like working out what the points difference was and what England had to get to. And I remember sitting having the meal with Johnny, and like the score kept ticking up, and like we were both stressed out, and I was particularly stressed, and Johnny could kind of sense that. And he was like, here, look, if it does come down to it, don't beat yourself up. Like, it wasn't because of your missed kick. If we do come second, you know, I missed loads of kicks throughout the Six Nations that I should have got. And, you know, it helped my nerves a bit, but it was just such a cagey, you know, 2 hours watching the game. And ultimately it came down to England being on France's line in the last play of the game. And if they got a try, they would have passed us out by, I think it was 2 points, which was just the worst case scenario. Like if they passed us out by 10 points, it wouldn't have felt bad. But if it was within that 3-point margin, it was literally worst case scenario. And they end up knocking the ball on in overtime. And the French fullback, Huget, picks the ball up in the in-goal area. And I'm just like, kick it out. and typical French, he goes to play out from his own in goal area in like injury time. Plays out, they knock the ball on. Suddenly, England are attacking again. Eventually, they knock the ball on before they score, and I've never in my life experienced relief like it. I remember bumping into Joe Schmidt soon afterwards. He gave me a big hug. He was like, "You're a very, very lucky boy." I was like, "Too right." I wouldn't have wanted to bump into him if we hadn't gone over the line.
No, I'm sure he wasn't the only one that was thinking like that as well. But yeah, look, a bonus point win against France is not an easy task at the weekend. So you have a little bit of experience playing over there, and you know some of the players quite well. What will France like? What are we hoping to do against France this weekend to, I suppose, capitalise on their strength in the midfield? Like, they've got Vakatawa, they've their 9-10 partnership that are used to playing with each other, and Mac and Dupont. You know, there's plenty of we know they've plenty of world class players. So what are Ireland going to do? You know, what's their first plan come Saturday
Yeah,
afternoon?
it's a tricky one because you're going over there probably knowing that you need 5 points, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, first penalty in their half at the start of the game, you're thinking, right, kick to the corner, we need tries. You could still go the route of, getting 3 points, building threes, 6, 9, 12, putting France under pressure and forcing them to play. Like, they'll be looking to win the game, forcing them to play a bit more. And you might only have one try after 60 minutes, but you could have France broken at that stage. And you could end up getting 3 tries in the last 20 minutes. So, like, I'd very much be of the belief that they've got to go over there, play their own game, and build their way into it, manage France, play the ball in the right areas. And we saw in the Welsh game that they do present their opposition with plenty of try scoring opportunities. And Wales built up an easy 10-point lead in that game, and I think if they do that to Ireland, it's going to be much harder to peg them back than how they did it against Wales at the weekend.
Exactly, and I suppose looking towards the Ireland squad for the weekend, nothing named at the moment, but Cian Healy is set to win his 100th cap. So what an achievement! And you would have obviously played quite a lot with him with Leinster and with Ireland. Um, he came back from a really bad, almost career-threatening injury, and I suppose to get to the 100th Test cap mark is some achievement.
Yeah, it's phenomenal for Cian. I think single-handedly he's changed the expectations of a loose head prop at international level. Seeing how mobile he is, his ability to jackal, his carrying ability, how good he is defensively, and I think even in Ireland, we take for granted how good his scrummaging is. Something in previous years that we really struggled with at loose head and tight head. We just take it for granted with Cian. But no, look, it's been a fantastic achievement for him. He's overcome some really nasty injuries, between his neck and his hamstring. And I think everyone in Ireland would be absolutely delighted to see him reach that 100 at the weekend. I wish him the best of luck.
I suppose I can't look past the Women's Six Nations game. Another 2 out of 2 for the Irish teams at the weekend, which is really, really promising going into a tough game against France. Did you happen to see any of the game?
Yeah, I did. It was a great game. Actually, I thought the Italians were very good. Took Ireland on physically in the first half, and I know the Italian 12 was a brilliant carrier and kind of the centre of a lot of what they did, and they were deserving of their 7-0 lead. But in fairness to the women, they stuck to it and ground them down, and scored some great tries.
Yeah, like I think the slow start was to be expected. Like, just it's been months since we've played. Like, we've had no competitive games, no interpro games, no club games. I'm not sure if the Italians did either, but the sloppiness and the rustiness was seen on both sides of the ball. I think Italy had so many chances early on to capitalize on our tight defense. We were very tight, very narrow in defense, and just I think a drop ball or a bad pass or a knock on just saved us in the early stages of the game until we actually found our flow. But yeah, it was a good start, and a start that we needed going into France at the weekend, and some really good performances there. Like, everyone's talking about Claire Malloy, but she really is what they say about her. Like, she's a phenomenal leader. As someone who's played with her since 2017, she's the one that sets the standards, whether it's on attack and defense, in everything that she does. And for someone like her to come back after a sabbatical, working in A&E through this whole COVID situation, like, she's phenomenal. And to be able to come back, your first international game back, and she hasn't a lot of rugby played. as a result of her job. And to be that good, it just is. There's so many amazing players on the team and so many good performances. Lindsay Peake came back after a broken leg. She broke her leg in that last game against England, and to come back at 39 years of age, she's 40 next week. She's shown us all up. She's hitting PBs in training. She's hitting your max speeds in on her GPS, and it's like, what the hell is she doing? She's a machine, and
Given all those
like just
girls and all.
such putting us all to shame. But I suppose we have to look at what the French have done ahead of our game at the weekend.
Yeah, I thought that was an incredibly nice gesture from them. Giving up their home advantage. What did you make of that?
Yeah, like we were in a really tricky situation. We got word last week in the last few weeks that we were going to have to take unpaid leave due to the quarantine rules, and technically we're amateurs, even though we're playing in an elite status. So we all work, we all have jobs. We're students or nurses, teachers, doctors, guards. There's everyone has a job, and 2 weeks unpaid leave was just. I think a lot of us were willing to do it. There was some that couldn't, and that's understandable. But I suppose we went to France with it, and they came back, which was amazing. And we're so lucky that they get to come to Ireland on Sunday and play us. And I suppose it just shows it just shows rugby and how good it is, and how um, it's a great gesture of solidarity so that our game could go ahead, because essentially we weren't going to be able to field a team. We wouldn't have had enough players to go over, and you don't want to go over against France after 4 wins in the Six Nations, and go over to France with half a team, and not play the best team you have, and not play the best type of rugby you can play. So really exciting. And it made it even more exciting the fact that they drew with Scotland last week, which means we actually have a chance of coming second. England are crown champions. They just have to um, beat. I'm not sure who they're playing at the weekend to win the Grand Slam. So, we can't win it, but we can finish second place, which is, really promising. And, we beat France in 2017. It's been a long time since we've beaten them, but, Scotland have showed us last week that they are beatable, and suppose we'll go into that game really positive and on the back of a good performance, but also knowing that they're just normal, even though they might be pro and train at a different level to us. But I suppose we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah, obviously with them, being fully professional, and ultimately that's allowed them to make this gesture of coming over and playing the game in Ireland. Have you noticed? Obviously, France and England are fully professional and continued being fully professional after the World Cup. Have you noticed the gap widening between France and England and the other international sides, or how have you found that over the last few years?
Yeah, like I think there's no looking past the fact that England are just on a different level at the moment, and it's all down to their structures and I suppose the funding that's been put in place in the English system. I suppose you saw it over in Bristol when you were over there, that the men and women are under the same kind of umbrella over there.
Yeah, like they're much more intertwined, both at international level, but even at club level. So where I was playing in Bristol, all the teams are under the same ownership. So you've basketball, soccer, rugby, and women's teams for each. And for us with the rugby, it was great. Like we were able to go down and on a weekly basis, players would go down and help coach, individual skills, whether it was, scrum half passing or going down, helping with goal kicking or breakdown work. And then the women would come back and they'd view our trainings, and they were very involved. And the head coach of the women now is one of the past players at Bristol. So it was great that there was, you build a relationship that way. And it was very similar with the soccer. We were able to go to their games, and they'd come and watch some of our trainings and vice versa. I think the more kind of interaction you can get between the women and men, it's only beneficial. And, what would you think with that? Like, would you like to be more involved with the men setup, at international level, and do you think that would be beneficial?
Yeah, like we can always benefit from, I suppose, outside sources and outside like the men's team, because your job at the end of the day is to train, and to train like professionals. And if we can learn even one thing about what you do in relation to your training or your recovery or your lifestyle to make us better rugby players, well, everyone's going to benefit from that. We're all on the same team, whether it's the men's or whether it's the women's team. And yeah, like it's interesting to find out, like there is huge differences obviously between the men's and the women's teams. We may be amateurs, but we train like professionals. But I suppose the main difference there is that, we don't get the recovery, or like we have our S&C coach, we have our gym sessions, we have our pitch sessions, our skill sessions, we have video analysts, GPS, everything. We have all the services available to us. But I suppose the main difference that we don't have is time, or we don't have the time to recover. Like I think that the men would get to do. Like I just always remember we played England in the November series a few years back, and we played them over in Twickenham, and it was a great game. We didn't win, but it was one of those performances that you were really proud of. But our 10 went off after 15 minutes and did our ACL. We had a broken hand, we had a dislocated shoulder, we had a ruptured spleen, I had concussion. We ran out of subs. Like we were broken after that game. And like I remember our doctor Frank at the time, he was so stressed trying to medically check us all out before we got on that flight, because he genuinely hadn't enough time to deal with us all. Like we were like the walking wounded walking through that airport. And I remember being in work the next day and I had a splitting headache, but like I had to get into work because I missed so many other days to play that you can't miss the days you're not playing.
Yeah.
And I remember being in teaching Leaving Cert Irish, like first class that day. And I was like, the English girls are probably sitting on a massage bed right now with, getting active recovery, similar to probably what you do on your Monday. What kind of stuff would you do on your recovery days, like yesterday after the game on Sunday? Like what does your usual recovery day look like?
Like I just have so much respect for what you've explained there, and even like the Gaelic football lads, going in teaching or working at a bank or whatever job it might be. Like for me, after a Sunday game, to think that I'd have to go and work on a Monday morning, your sleep after a game is generally very poor. Like you've hammered a load of caffeine to get yourself in the right frame of mind for playing the game, and then for me, like waking up, I'd just be very stiff, very sore, haven't slept well, probably not in a great headspace. The height of what I'd be doing on my day off would, into the club, get a flush out, go for a swim, and then I'd probably come back in the afternoon and try and catch up on some sleep, like get like a 2-hour nap, making sure I'm eating really well. Like even that, like all our meals are laid on for, so you don't even have to really worry about your diet.
Yeah.
But like for you guys to be able to, like, I think the biggest challenge as well is like even your timetable, because if you're working a standard job of 9 till 5 or 6, it means you have to train very early in the morning, and then or else you might have to do your gym work in the morning and then do your pitch sessions in the evening. And I know myself, when I train at, let's say, 6 or 7 o'clock at night, it's very hard to wind down afterwards. You're rushing in your dinner, quick shower, you've barely any time to wind down, and then as a result, your recovery and your sleep is affected. Like, and it just kind of has a knock-on effect. I'm sure you find at times you're just kind of chasing your tail throughout the week.
Yeah, like there's so many times I just wish you could just press pause for a second just to catch up with everything. And it's not even the training side of things. Like the training you enjoy and you don't mind doing it, but it's as a result of you've been up at 5 in the morning to make that gym session at 6. It's you don't get enough sleep, so you're wrecked and you're completely chasing your tail. You just have to be organized with everything. And I think it's whether it's your food, whether it's your schoolwork, whether it's your recovery, you just have to be a little bit more organized and spend the time planning. And like it's the little things like your hydration and your food and all that really can't take a backseat either. They're the important things, but it is difficult. But like we all make a choice to do it, and we do have the setups to help us and to guide us through. And like our S&C Orla, like she checks our sleep every day and our stress every day. And um some days that can be higher than others, and it will be flagged and your training load will be reduced as a result. Or I remember I tore my calf back in before the first game in the Six Nations, and it had been active schools week that week. And Andy, my calves were tight actually, and Andy, our physio, told me, you need to, first thing a physio tells you to do is just, get off your feet. Like I'm a PE teacher in active schools week, like I cannot afford to get off my feet. And as a result, that weekend I tore my calf, and he was able to like track it back to my load that week. And it's the luxury that we don't have, is getting off our feet. Like I was in school with a dead leg 2 weeks ago, and you're trying to demo things and you're like, look, get someone else to do it for me, because it's not possible. But that's just the reality that we do. And I think because all of us are in the same situation, we have that respect and trust for each other, knowing that like you could be somewhere else right now, but you're choosing to be here and you're choosing to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do your gym session. And there's sacrifices we make, and I think that makes us bond together as a squad a little bit more because you're making sacrifices to be where we are.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I think as well, it probably ties in. Like you're more inclined to have the odd bad day because you don't know what else is going on in your job, outside of your life. Whereas for us in a professional environment, there's much less excuses there. The expectation is you're turning up every day and you're ready to go and be at your best, and that's certainly demanded of you. But I think for you guys,
Yeah,
it's going.
just talking about being at your best there, like obviously there's the physical side of the preparation in relation to, you how many times you train a week, but would you do a lot of mental prep heading into games? Like I feel that's one aspect of my game and maybe the women's game that we lack in slightly because it's the time I suppose we don't have. And like how important would you rate like your mental prep, or how do you deal with the pressure of pre-game nerves heading into important games?
Yeah, I suppose like for me, like I've dealt with nerves throughout my career. Like it's something that I would have had throughout school. I was, always got quite nervous leading into games, and I suppose as my career's gone on, I've actually kind of enjoyed that nerves. If I didn't get nervous, and it has happened at times, it's probably because I didn't care as much, and that's not a good feeling to have. While you might be more relaxed, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to play well. I now find that I like kind of building up games and feeling nervous, and then I think that spurs me on. It definitely increases my adrenaline and makes me focus better. But for me, I'll be quite planned out in how I go about my week, and I find by ticking off a certain amount of stuff within the week, whether it's my goal kicking, tackling, passing, all my gym work, once I've got all that stuff mapped out at the weekend before a game, and then I go through that kind of process throughout the week, as I get closer to game time, I can kind of look back on that body of work that I've done and kind of reassure myself, here, look, I'm ready to go for this game, as opposed to looking at the game as a whole and going, oh my God, am I ready for what's to come? So that would be, I suppose, a big part of it. But I'd use other tools as well. Like I, take, 15, 20 minutes to visualize the plays that we're going to be doing throughout a game, and what I think the opposition are going to defend, so I can see certain pictures, and then when I get to a game it's almost like second nature. It's like I've been there before. And then I use I've highlight reels that I use. It's a bit vain, but I think looking back at good footage of yourself and kind of reassuring yourself that you're a good player. And I'm sure for you, you hadn't played in 7 or 8 months. I'm sure you were questioning yourself at times coming back into the international fold.
Yeah, dead right. Like I went through a phase last week of being like, Jesus, I haven't tackled in months, or like I haven't played a game. My last game was that English game back in February. It's a long time, even though we've done it in training, we've done tackle bags, we've played 15 to 15 in training, but I think you doubt yourself a lot as a player, and those highlight reels are exactly what you need. And personally, I do the same as you in that visualization, that you visualize yourself making that tackle, or getting that high ball exiting properly. And I think it's one area of my game I can definitely improve on, is the psychological side of my preparation. But um visualization is one tool that I would use quite a bit. And you're visualizing yourself making that last tackle, like as a 15, it's a nightmare. It's like, I don't know what about you, but one of the nightmares that I often have is last man back, and you are one on one with somebody and they have 30 meters of space, and it's like, I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't here. There's no good outcome. And like, I don't know about you, but like there's been so many times that I have missed tackles, and it's just like, that's just another one gone.
Yeah, I think like one of the big things that like makes me nervous before a game would be, I'd be worried about like two particular things. Like one of them would be getting roasted by someone on the outside. Like, everyone sees it. There's no getting away from it. Um, I think back like a few years ago, I came up one on one against Christian Wade in like a pretty small space. Like the defender tied on my inside, and he's
You're
just
supposed to say there's loads of space.
there was not much space. He has stood me up. I've dodged. I haven't even but like that sticks with you for quite a while, and it's very hard to kind of forget that memory, and you're that would be something that would worry me. Like you don't want to get shown up for speed in a game, I suppose the other one would be like getting run over by someone. You know, when someone just takes you on one and looks to run over the top of you. I know recently, like I just back into the Irish setup with Ulster, and Bundy Aki got the ball 1-on-1 with me and got over the top of me, and like it's a tough one to take, and it does feel like it's kind of a long road back from it. But I suppose you just kind of go back to what you can do in training to best prepare yourself for what you're going to come up against in a game. And like for you with those 1-on-1s, I'm sure you're out there, practicing during the week to best prepare yourself for the weekend.
That's it. I suppose you have to look at it and make sure that you've, like you said, ticked every box on the way to getting there, and whether it's physically or mentally. And I think once you're prepared, and I feel like, your physical prep leads into your mental prep as well. Like if you've hydrated well, you've done a great gym session this week, your passing's gone well, your kicking's gone well, it psychologically affects you in that game as well, that you're like, no, I have everything done. I am ready for this game. And there is no better feeling going into that game. Absolutely, absolutely ready.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Before we come back with the Guinness House of Rugby Hall of Fame, and chat about the weekend's Tri-Fest and the Guinness Pro 14, we are going to hear from Peter O'Mahony and Johnny Sexton in Ireland camp.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
Yeah, I suppose we just have to wait and see, don't we? But all we can control at the moment is our performance. So what we're trying to, I suppose, emphasise to everyone in the squad is that we need to get our performance right no matter what. If it's just a win, if it's a bonus point win, we're still going to have to play well no matter what. So let's just focus on that aspect, and hopefully we know that if we can perform well, that we'll give ourselves chances, and then it's up to us to try and take those chances on the day and be clinical. Yeah, a lot's happened since. It does feel like a long time ago. But it's great to be back in that situation now where we've got a trophy on the line. We know that it's in our own hands in many ways. No matter what happens in the games before it, we'll still be going onto the pitch, being able to win the trophy, which is it's what you play for. It's you play, you train hard for these big days, and we're looking forward to it now. And like I said, we're just trying to concentrate on our performance and make sure if we can get that right, it gives us a chance. I think their just ability to score out of nothing, and I suppose that points to the individual flair that they have. Dupont, Ntamack at halfbacks. You saw them against Wales last weekend. How it looks like Wales are defending well, and then out of nowhere they're gone. You know what I mean? Fakatawa's obviously been in great form. Fiku's been doing well. So from a back's point of view, they've just got threats throughout, and we're going to have to be unbelievably connected and together, because if you show them that those dog legs in defence or those big gaps, they're through it like pretty quick. So from a back's point of view, and then up front they've got power, don't they? They've got big men and lots of power. So it's a big ask. We know that, but we're preparing ourselves for a big performance.
Been, I suppose, a competitive athlete, and in the environment that we're in, everyone wants to play. You know what I mean? And that's not always possible. And I have to say it's an incredibly enjoyable environment, and we're bouncing off each other and we're learning. Of course, I'd be sitting here, I'd be lying to you if say I didn't want to start, but at the end of the day, there's 23 people need to take the pitch at any given time on a Saturday or a Sunday, and there's a massive emphasis put on our bench to come on and not just I suppose roll in, but to make a difference. You know what I mean? There's guys out there who've been out there for whatever 55, 60, 65 minutes, and you've got to make a difference and be different when you come on, and that's the pressure we put on ourselves. I wouldn't say it's frustrating, you know what I mean? Certainly competitively, I want to play every game, I want to start every match. That's just the way we all are as a group. But I think we understand that team comes first, and you've got to be best prepared to play 79 minutes or 80 minutes or 15, doesn't matter what you get, you've got to be ready to go. Yeah, look, obviously it's not ideal, but given the circumstances, there's a good chance myself and the lads won't be the last people to do it. You know what I mean? There's you've heard from us already, we're very privileged to be in the position that we are, that we can still go to work every day. At the moment there's people going through a lot worse than we are, or a lot a lot worse than I did for 2 weeks on my own. You know what I mean? It's fairly trivial, to be honest with you, if you put it in context. So I'm certainly not going to be sitting here whinging about it. It won't be the first time or last time that's going to be happening to someone in this group. But look, you just got to battle on with it, and that's what I did. You battle on your hands every week. I've had 68 or 69 or 67 battles every week. I played for Ireland. I've worked as hard as I physically could to get a jersey, whether it was on the bench or whether it was starting. There's nothing taken for granted. There's nothing given in these circles. When I first started, you look at the back row that was there, and every single weekend you look at the back rows that I was involved with, and now the back row at the moment, it's never been anything but probably the most competitive position on the pitch. So we're in a battle every week to get a jersey, not a mind to start. So I have to say I'm hugely enjoying it and learning from it. The performance from the back row, the starting back row at the weekend was, I thought, second to none. You know what I mean? I thought their energy, their moments in the game, the amount of work they got through was incredible. And from a team point of view, you couldn't be prouder of the way the team worked at the weekend, and particularly the back row. So, as I said, it's an absolute battle every weekend to get any jersey in this team.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
So last week on the show, we inducted our very first member, Dave Welton, into our Guinness House of Rugby Hall of Fame. Before the Italy game at the weekend, producer Pat asked everybody on the Facebook group to send along some pictures of your home setups for the game. There was huge response to that, and some really sweet setups too. A big shout out to Quiva, Jonathan, Aidan, Mike, Jamesy, David, Terry, Ray, Joe, John, Stephen, Finola, Connor, Shane, Deborah, Angie, Sharon and Jay for their entries. But our winner and latest Hall of Fame member is Thomas Bohan. Producer Pat had a little bit of a link with you, and he thought, feck it, I'll tidy up the kids' toys later. It resonated with him, and you just focused on the match. You got your priorities straight, Thomas, that's for sure. So well done, Thomas. You are our newly inducted member into the Guinness House of Rugby Hall of Fame. Now, we can't finish up this chat without mentioning the high glut of high-scoring games that we had in the Guinness Pro 14 at the weekend. Ian, you got your first home start for Ulster in the number 10 jersey. How did you find that?
Yeah, it was great. Obviously, a bit unusual having to wait 4 months to get my first kind of home start in the Kingspan Ravenhill. Obviously, because of the lockdown, we played some of our home games in the Aviva, and then I didn't play the first league game of the year. But no, it was great. Obviously, we train in the Kingspan quite a bit, and it's a fantastic surface. Really big pitch. Bit surreal again, playing in front of no supporters. That would have been particularly special to play there for the first time, having home support there. But no, it was great. The home games are really special. Being able to roll out of bed and do your own preparation, and then go down to the stadium with lots of time to spare and not having to deal with travel. I almost forgot what it felt like. So that was brilliant. And for the game to go as well as it did was great. Another 5 points, and we're 3 from 3 now, which is great. And heading into what will be a tough game this weekend against Cardiff. I thought they put it up to Munster well last night, but I'm sure you're impressed with Munster's performance.
Yeah, you have to take the good with the bad. They still got 3 points, three tries, which I know that Munster won't be happy with. So even though there was elements of enjoyment in the way that Munster played and the way they offloaded and were exciting to watch in attack, they have to look a bit at their defence too. And the three tries that Cardiff got were, I suppose good tries, but defensive errors at the same time. So, look, I think everyone has been complaining quite a while about the way that Munster have been playing with, one-off box kicks and no real creativity in their attack. And I suppose traditionally Munster, were that dogged team to get, they grind out tries through their forward pack, and that still was the case. So they're still the same Munster try scoring machine in the pack, and the pack did really well. But along with that, they showed the excitement and the expansive rugby and the offloading game. I think they had 17 offloads yesterday. and I think their average last year was 5 per game. So, Stephen Larkin got quite a bit of stick in relation to, what is he bringing as the attack coach? And I think we're finally starting to see it as a Munster team. And yes, I am absolutely delighted with that Munster. They're 3 from 3 as well. So the Irish provinces are doing pretty well. Leinster 3 from 3 again, a 63-8 win against Zebra. So it's their new caps as well, their hooker, getting those 2 tries. And I suppose you were there, you were through that Leinster, you've come through the ranks through there. And I suppose the one thing we've noticed with Leinster recently is that they're giving those young guys the opportunity to play. Like Leo Cullen is backing those young guys. And we see it with Hugo Keenan, we see it all across the board. And it's even happening, I think, down in Munster, that we're seeing, the likes of Ben Healy and Craig Casey getting their chances to start at only 21 years of age. But was that the case when you were with Leinster? Like, did you have to, wait it out until it was your time, or if you were good enough, you were old enough?
Yeah, like there definitely were cases of guys being good enough, even though they might have been 18 or 19. I remember Luke Fitzgerald playing the first year out of school. Same, Rob Carney played and went on to play for Ireland within a year of leaving school. So, but saying that, there wouldn't have been the same numbers of 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are getting opportunities now. Now, part of that is because of the international window, but also how squads are going. Probably looking more to younger guys than they would have in previous years, and the quality of the academy setups. These younger guys, they're physically in better condition than younger players would have been 10 years ago, because they're undertaking strength and conditioning programs from probably the age of 14 or 15 in school, and as a result of that, when they get to 19, 20, they're physically ready to play men's rugby. And we certainly saw that. I thought Dan Sheehan was fantastic at the weekend. And what struck me was, after the game, when he got awarded the man of the match photo, the man of the match award, after his flowery enough interview, he was standing beside Rhys Ruddock, and they were the same size. Rhys is a huge man, and for this guy to be playing hooker, he must be about 6 foot, maybe 6'4". I thought the way he got around the pitch was very impressive. He looks like he's got really good basics to his game. Good throw of the ball, good set piece, and really hungry to carry the ball. So he's definitely one for the future.
Absolutely. And I suppose another positive from that game was the return of Dan Levy after that 18-month absence that he had with that, I suppose, horrendous injury he got. Really positive, and I suppose positive on all fronts in relation to Leinster and Ireland, that he is back on the pitch and almost bagged himself a try.
Yeah, I was delighted for Dan. It's been a long road to recovery for him, but I know he got a try that was disallowed, but I think everyone took serious satisfaction in seeing him open his legs up and showing that he certainly hasn't lost any of his pace. And I'm sure we'll see him build back to form over the next few weeks and months, and hopefully back into the international setup in the near future.
Exactly. And I suppose staying with the Irish games, Connacht again had another win over the weekend for a clean sweep with the Pro 14. And 5 tries away to Edinburgh is not always an easy task, but I suppose they made the most of the Scottish internationals being away, getting those 5 tries. And like you said a while ago, Caelan Blade sneaking around with that really cheeky kick, and it bounced up perfectly for him. So they're playing that type of, I suppose, expansive rugby that Connacht have been trying to play in the last few years, and it's paying off for them.
Yeah, I thought that was a great win. Going over to Edinburgh is really tough, and even like they got an injury at out half early on. Tom Daly, who's very much an out and out centre, stepped in, and I thought he was absolutely fantastic at out half. Kicked his goals really well, controlled the game. Played the ball in the right areas, and if anything, he showed that maybe playing out half isn't as hard as we make it out to be.
No, look, I thought it in seamlessly. Yeah,
he did. No, he was great. I was delighted for him. He's a player who I knew, during my time in Leinster. Obviously, he's had the last few seasons down in Connacht, and he's played 30 or 40 caps in the last few seasons, and you can see now he's really finding his feet and playing fantastic rugby. He's a great athlete, and whether he's playing 10, 12 or 13, I think he's going to be a huge part of Connacht, and someone who can definitely push for international honours further down the line.
Yeah, I would have known Tom from when he was in the sevens program along with Alex Wooten, who again was on the wing and was fantastic with the brace of tries at the weekend. Himself and John Port on the wing. Well, John Port at 15, a former Aussie sevens player. They're two players that you just, as a winger, as a fullback, as a player in general, you just don't like to see them running down your channel, because as we spoke about a while ago, getting burnt is something that like I think would happen fairly often with those two right in front of you. But they showed their pace and they showed their power from that, I suppose, their sevens experience as well. But nightmare to have them in front of you.
Yeah, certainly. I think the way Connacht are playing, they're playing with great width, getting the ball to their fast guys, and then they've got great ball players in their pack, and they're definitely a side that's going to be competing at the top end of their conference.
So look, 4 wins out of 4 for the Irish provinces and 2 wins against Italy. So we'll be hoping for more of the same next weekend against France. So big cheers to everybody for watching and listening. A big thank you to producer Pat, Paul, Dermot, Ian, Anthony, and everyone that helped getting this show together. This has been House of Rugby Ireland. I'm Joe, together with Guinness. Slán
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.